Are we live yet?
You're live.
Thank you. Okay, Chair Barry, thank you. We're ready.
Okay, it's John Barry. Welcome to the February 17th, 2021 Airport Advisory Commission meeting. And let's start off with a roll call, please.
Good evening, everyone. This is Carmen Williams. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Commission Chair John Barry.
Present.
Commission Vice Chair Charles McDermott.
Present.
Commissioner Corey Little.
Present.
Commissioner Liz Kaplan. Okay, absent. Commissioner Larry Bernosky.
Present.
Commissioner Peter Meyer.
Here.
And Commissioner Rick Milburn.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, we will start off with the Aviation Director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Again, welcome to the February 17th virtual meeting. Hopefully sooner than later, we'll be able to meet back in person. Looking forward to that, as well as the staff, and I know you guys are as well. Just want to provide you two quick updates, Mr. Chair. One is I would like to thank Commissioner Kaplan for her 3 years of service to the commission. Fortunately, she's not here tonight, but we do appreciate her taking the time out when she was here to help support the commission. She did not renew, so we anticipate having a new commissioner on board for the March meeting. There are 2 candidates that have been nominated, and then we will find out the beginning of March when the council makes the appointment. In addition, I would also like to provide you a quick update on aircraft operation and fuel volumes. And speaking with our business partner, the FBO operators, the best way to describe it is we're going gangbusters here. We're about 25 to 30% over fuel volume month over month. We rolled into the end of the year at about 25% over fuel volume. And this month of January has been crazy. There's been days that one of the FBO operators is pumping over 30,000 gallons of fuel, which is a significant amount, which means we're doing very, very well from a charter and corporate aircraft standpoint. And U.S. Customs, as you see, has been doing very well as well. With that, Mr. Chair, that ends my report.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Agenda item number 1, discussion and possible action. Adoption of resolution 12075, a lease agreement with 3R Ranch.
Mr. Chair, if I may, you skipped over doing the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It happens.
Okay. Let's review last month's minutes then. Any comments from any of my fellow commissioners? If there are no comments, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Pete Meyer.
Second, Corey Little.
Okay, can we have a vote?
This is Carmen. Chair John Barry.
Yay.
Vice Chair McDermott.
Yes.
Chair Bernosky.
Yes.
And Commissioner Milburn.
Yes.
Thank you. 6-0.
Okay, and next time, Larry, remind me about the order of things, since this is my first time. I need to help.
Sorry, Gary, but you got to do a better transition job.
I usually throw stuff at Larry. I can't throw anything to you right now, but I will when I see you. Don't worry.
It's hard with, I've got like 3 computer screens and a Zoom iPad. I don't have my stuff here, so it's a little difficult. So bear with me. Now
we're here to help and support you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can we move to the 3R Ranch and hear about this from Carmen?
Thank you, Chair Barry and Commissioners. So item 1 recommends adoption of resolution 12075. This would be a new lease agreement with 3R Ranch for the North General Aviation Executive Box Hangar space. So this should be the very last of the box hangar lease agreements. A couple of months ago, one of our hangar tenants decided to cancel his relocation to Arizona, and the city agreed to a mutual lease termination with that tenant. So 3R Ranch Inc. would like to lease out that available unit A6. This lease would also require city council approval and would be going to their March 2nd meeting. So in your packet, you've got a copy of their lease agreement and graphics showing the unit. Any questions about the lease?
And the lease terms are fine with you guys, Carmen?
Yes. Yes, we even negotiated a higher amount than the, than the prior tenant, so.
Well, that's very good. So do I have a motion from any of my fellow commissioners on this item?
Vice Chair McDermott, I'll make a motion.
Second, Larry Bernowski.
That's a motion to approve it, I assume.
Yes, I'm sorry, motion to approve.
Got it. Could we have a vote?
Okay, this is Carmen, Chair Barry,
Yay.
Commissioner Little,
Yay.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
and Commissioner Milburn.
Yes.
Thank you. 6-0 passed.
Okay, item number 2 is discussion and possible action regarding this draft Scottsdale general plan. And I assume somebody from the city, perhaps Adam, is here to talk to us about this.
Chair Barry, this is actually Taylor Reynolds.
Oh, hi, Taylor. Sorry
and
about that.
That's okay. As I'm waiting for Tiffany to bring up the slide deck, and before I start, I just wanted to, briefly touch upon the memo packet that was sent to the commission ahead of this meeting. I know it was kind of lengthy, but really the packet was meant to afford the commission the ability to review their specific content, which is, maybe 5 pages of content in the context of those full elements. Again, recognizing it was kind of a lengthy packet. So today we'll just focus on airport advisory specific content as a summary, really, and look for feedback on such from the commission. And as you may recall, Commissioner Bernowski sat on this review committee and attended every meeting, providing input on behalf of your commission. So with
So
that,
Larry should know this stuff inside and out then.
Yes, it should be like the back of his hand.
Okay.
So with that, again, I'm Taylor Reynolds with Long Range Planning for Case 1 GP 2021. In terms of this slide deck, we'll briefly go over a high-level view of what the general plan is, the work that was put in by the CRC, and really just specific goals and policies and a map that specifically relate to the Airport Advisory Commission. So with that, next slide, please. In terms of what a general plan is, it's a broad-based city policy document. It contains community-wide goals and guides high-level decision-making, but it is not a rigid or static plan. It is not regulatory by any means, so it's not a zoning ordinance. It's not a specific project or a capital project. And although a lot of folks think it is this, it is not just the land use map. It touches upon a broad range of ideas throughout the community. As I discussed, it even touches upon the airport and other aspects as well. Next slide.
So inside joke, Taylor, it's not a controlling document.
It is not a controlling document, right? So state statutes provide that we must have a general plan and that it is updated every 10 years. In terms of that update, it has enhanced public outreach, and we go before Planning Commission and City Council for possible adoption, and it must be voter ratified to go into effect. So the 2001 general plan, as you see here, was adopted in 2001 and ratified by public vote in 2002. Next slide, please. As I stated, it is effective for up to 10 years and must be updated and re-ratified every 10 years. So the city underwent the 2011 general plan update process. It was composed of a 19-member general plan working group, fairly similar to the citizen review committee that Commissioner Bernowski sat upon. There was extensive public outreach, and City Council did adopt the plan in 2011. However, next slide. It failed at the next available public vote, as you can see, by a margin of 2%. So as such, we still do operate under that 2001 general plan. Next slide, please. Since we do need to ratify a more recent general plan, there was between the years of 2012 and 2014, the general plan update process. This plan, as well as the 2011 plan, went through extensive public outreach, as you can see on this slide. However, this particular plan did not go through that public hearing process, so it was never heard by Planning Commission and was not heard by City Council for possible adoption. So we utilized this plan as the baseline plan for the Citizen Review Committee process. Next slide, please. The Citizen Review Committee, as you can see here, was made up of 13 boards and commissions that have related or relevant content throughout the general plan. And as I stated, Commissioner Bernowski was lucky enough to be chosen and sit upon the committee for us. Next slide. As I stated, the 13-member committee met a total of 13 public meetings throughout 2020, all through COVID restrictions. And they completed their charge by reviewing the entire draft 2035 plan. This included the review and consideration of a large number of public comments. As you can see here, we had over 300 plus comments. And they did go through that line by line, as Commissioner Bernowski can definitely attest to. So this ensured that the draft plan was up to date, incorporated further clarity, and where necessary, incorporated new goals and policies throughout the plan. Again, today's presentation will include highlights of some of those major updates as a result of this process and specific to this commission. Next slide. This slide provides just an overview of the process and timeline that we're within. The Citizen Review Committee completed their phase in phase 3. So we're in phase 4, and it aligns with that state statute required adoption process. So it includes public outreach, it includes going before Planning Commission and City Council for possible adoption. And then if City Council does adopt the plan, it would be put on the next available ballot, which would be this November. Next slide. In terms of the high-level organization of the plan, it's organized into 3 chapters. Or sorry, 3 sections, the most important of which are the chapters, which is section 2. That includes the 23 elements that are housed within the plan. 17 of those are state mandated. 6 of them are community created, so they are specific to the city of Scottsdale. 3 of those came from that 2001 process and have been brought forward. The other 3 are new within this plan, one of which was specifically penned by the Citizen Review Committee, and that's the tourism element. Next slide. If you were to look throughout the packet I sent you, you'd see that there was a lot of coloration that aligns with the legislative edits that occurred as a result of the Citizen Review Committee's process. And this slide represents basically a legend of what those legislative edits were. So if it was in blue, it purely came from the Citizen Review Committee. Green had city staff input that the Citizen Review Committee decided they wanted to incorporate into the plan. And similarly, red was citizen outreach that the Citizen Review Committee heard and again agreed with and decided to incorporate into the draft plan. Next slide. So with that, we'll move on to the elements. I believe there's 4 elements we'll quickly go over. Each one has very specific content to the Airport Advisory Committee, or Airport Advisory Commission. The land use element itself reflects the careful consideration for the types and locations of defined land uses, including transitions, land use makeup, as well as airport considerations. In terms of this specific element, we will only go over one goal and then a map along with it. Next slide, please. So if you were to peruse the 2001 general plan looking for airport specific content, there really is not a lot in that plan. There's a couple policies scattered here and there that relate to the airport, but nothing specific to the airport. So as you'll see, even though it's not a lot of content here today, there is a lot more within this draft plan. So you can see that there's the new goal LU7 about protecting the viability of the Scottsdale Airport by encouraging compatible land uses and development types in the surrounding area. All of these were originally penned by the task force process that occurred between 2012 and 2014. So As you can see, not a lot of change is proposed here by the Citizen Review Committee. So really, they're reinforcing that all of this remains relevant into the future. Next slide, please. This slide notates the map that is dedicated to the airport in the land use element. It's the airport influence area map. And we have it in here for two reasons. One is it meets state statutes for needing an exhibit detailing airports within our municipal boundary, and it does that. But furthermore, it provides detail on the noise contours and influence areas found within the Part 150 study and also the airport master plan. And both of them are referenced here. So now we have a dedicated map in the general plan we can point to when we have applicants coming in to develop within this area of the city. Usually we point them to the Part 150 study and the noise contours and all that, but now we can point them also to a map within the general plan that aligns with that. Next slide. Safety element. It contains goals and policies to ensure that the community is prepared when facing disaster and is safe for all community members. In terms of this particular element, we'll only go over one goal. Next slide. The goals and policies here are new, again, to that task force process, but have, again, as you can see, not a lot of coloration for goal S5 and policies 5, 1, 2, and 3. Not a lot of change there, which again means that the Citizen Review Committee reinforced those previous efforts to maintain safe airspace and transportation systems throughout the city. Next slide, please. So now we have the circulation element, which contains goals and policies that concentrate on accessibility, connectivity, mobility choices, and again, how that all relates to land use. In terms of specific policy for the airport, we have one within C1, the C1 goal. Next slide. So the goal here is to design and improve transportation corridors to safely and efficiently move people and goods. On the left, you can see that on the left-hand side of the screen. On the right is the supporting policy of policy C1.9. Again, the CRC did not change or propose to change this policy, but really reinforced that to support the airport as an integral transportation hub, connecting the community to national and international markets. Again, since it says new, it is new to this plan, so it is not in our current 2001 general plan that we utilize today. Next slide. This will be the final element that we go over. Again, next slide, please. There we go. This will be the final element we go over. Again, specific to this element is a new policy within this element that falls under goal 3. The economic vitality element emphasizes compatibility, growth, and flexibility in terms of Scottsdale's economic well-being. Next slide, please. So the goal here is to sensitively manage land uses and to provide an enhanced economic development for Scottsdale. And policy EV 3.6, as you can see in the middle of the screen, is to enhance and protect Scottsdale Airport as a global connection for tourism and business development. Again, as you can see, no change here recommended by the CRC. So they're reinforcing this element to move forward. Next slide. The implementation chapter is new to the general plan. It provides clarity to the purpose of the document by guiding more specific efforts that may be undertaken by city departments, city council, or even boards and commissions. To that end, the implementation chapter includes several items such as the airport Part 150 program as an ongoing item on this slide. And then on the next slide, it contains the airport master plan update as occurring in years 5 to 10 of this plan's implementation timeline. Next slide. So where are we going from here? This timeline slide highlights the vast amount of public outreach and opportunities that will be available over the coming month, as well as aligning with, again, those state statute required update process. So we will be going before the 13 boards and commissions that had the 13 members on the Citizen Review Committee. We will be conducting some open houses to hopefully garner more public input. And then March through June, we'll be meeting with Planning Commission and City Council with a possible adoption by City Council in June. And if they do adopt, again, we would be in front of the public for a public vote in November. Next slide. If folks are wanting to provide comments outside of either attending one of these public meetings that was on the previous slide, or if they want to attend a open house that we are conducting online, they can go to the city's website, scottsdaleaz.gov, keyword general plan update. On this page, you're able to peruse the various elements within the draft plan and submit specific comments to the specific elements. Or again, you could sign up for an open house as the availability of those open up. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation. Again, I just want to highlight the effort and input put forth by the CRC and membership directly from your commission through Member Bernowski, as it is very much appreciated. Again, if there's further input the board would like to provide, I'm here to collect it and forward it to Planning Commission and City Council for their further consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Taylor, very much. Larry, do you have any particular comments that you think we should know? I mean, it appears to me that the general plan is not very specific other than enhance and protect the Scottsdale Air Park, which is why we all are serving on this commission, obviously. But I'd be interested to see if Larry has any comments after he spent so much time for us on this process.
Nothing new to add to Taylor. But I do want to point out that Taylor, Aaron, and Adam, they really did a tremendous job under difficult circumstances, not meeting face to face. As a result, the meals were lousy, but that's another. So the only thing is that, as Taylor mentioned, it was pretty much stuff was protected that was in there that wasn't in the 2001 plan and may have been put in 2011 and carried forward. There on the contour map, there was some questioning of why that was there. And I, trying to explain, I think that's very important for anybody viewing the airport and the environment that it resides in. So that fortunately did stay in. Otherwise, I believe Gary also added an element or a suggestion also. But otherwise, I think airport should be in good shape.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Gary, do you have any other comments on this?
Mr. Chair, I do not. I think the team did a great job. We, as an executive level folks, were engaged early and helped craft some of that language to protect the airport. I think Taylor said it correctly, is if you look at the general plan now, there's very little, if any, airport stuff. And now we feel pretty strong and protective about our airport. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. A lot of airports don't have what we have. So in my opinion, from a staff perspective and airport director, I totally support it.
Okay. Well, your opinion is important to us, Mr. Airport Director.
Why, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So thank you for that. Taylor, are you looking for any type of resolution or recommendation from us, or is this an information only presentation?
Chair Barry, members of the commission, again, I think we provided, does it say possible action in there? If we did, really what we wanted from you is kind of what we're getting right now. Our main objective was just to give you one last look at it before we go in front of, on sale on to Planning Commission and City Council, really to let you have one last look and collect any additional comments you may have, not really looking for any action item.
Okay, Taylor, thanks. So any commissioners have any comments for Taylor on this? It seems obviously fine to me. I think the airport remains, or maybe is enhanced in its protection. Anybody else have any comments?
I just add another thing, Taylor, is there anything to say about what the council is planning to do now that they haven't? I guess they're going to be pretty actively involved in some next steps.
Sure, Commissioner Bernowski, Chair Barry, City Council is making themselves very involved in the process. Staff will be meeting with them, and we already have met with them once at a work study session. They're really trying to get their hands on the plan and work through it, kind of similarly to the Citizen Review Committee, maybe at more of a higher level look, as they are very interested in, as I understand it, of getting this plan through and not just adopted, but ratified in November. So I believe they're concerned with getting it through in that regard.
All right, thanks, sir. Any other comments, commissioners?
Commissioner Milburn here. I just wonder if it's worthwhile for our commission to support this, officially support it by vote or not. Does that help with the city council?
Commissioner Milburn, members of the commission, certainly, I believe the way I think the way we wrote this up was, it says possible action. If you so choose to provide that action, that's certainly up to the commission. You would be the first out of the, I believe, the 7 or so we've already presented to take such an act, but I think it wouldn't hurt. So it's really up to you folks.
Okay, then let's enter into some discussion, commissioners. Is this something we'd like to consider doing this evening?
Mr. Chair, this is Gary Mascaro. What you can do is call for a motion, and if you get a motion and you get a second, then you can do a little more discussion if necessary, and then you can take a vote.
Okay, is there a motion on the table?
Commissioner Milburn here again. I would move that we as a commission of the whole show our support of the Scottsdale general plan elements that pertain to the airport itself.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Little, second.
Any discussion, gentlemen? No discussion, then let's have a roll call.
I was just going to say, sorry, Gary, John, that I guess this would be non-binding. It would just be our view on the commission. It's not necessarily recommended for adoption, but I think it's a positive thing for us to do.
No, that's fine. So let's have a vote then.
Okay, this is Carmen. Chair Barry,
Yes.
Vice Chair McDermott,
Yes.
Chair Bernowski,
Yes.
and I'm sorry, Commissioner Bernowski and Commissioner Meyer.
Yes.
Okay, it passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Taylor, thanks for the presentation and good luck on the big battle is in November. So good luck on that.
Yeah, and I do appreciate your time this evening. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 3, discussion and possible action for the 5-year capital improvement program. And Carmen is going to tell us all about it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to get spooled up with my presentation. Can you see my main screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chair Barry and Commissioners. So in my presentation this evening, I will review the 5-year capital improvement program covering fiscal years 21-22 through 25-26. So for at least 3 of you, this format is going to be pretty familiar looking from prior years, but we do have probably 3 that have not been familiar with this presentation. What I'll normally do is kind of discuss the background of our grant and our CIP process, how the projects are selected, and then I'll go into a list of projects within our 5-year plan. Okay, so this screen will show you kind of the background on our capital planning processes. So the airport undergoes 2 separate capital planning processes each year. So when we develop our 5-year program, we look to several guiding documents. The airport master plan forecasts our future needs and provides a blueprint for the improvements we'll undertake over a 20-year planning period. We also consider the city's general plan that was just presented, as well as the goals of the mayor and the city council and guidance from the Airport Advisory Commission. We also take input from our staff. For example, the operations staff that inspect and maintain our pavements. They'll know best which pavements are in need of repairs or areas that might need some better drainage for suggested projects in the future. Our airport team then works with our on-call engineers and the planning team to come up with a list of grant eligible projects. Then each year in the spring, the airport meets with the Federal Aviation Administration and the ADOT, State Department of Transportation, to look at this 5-year look ahead of projects that are eligible for grant funding. So when we go through the city's capital process later in the summer, this would be the second process we go through, we start looking also into non-grant funded projects, as well as identify any new projects. So all of the projects that we request in the 5-year period go into the city's capital budget database. And each year, the list of the projects will change. Oftentimes, we're looking at the timing of a project. It might move out a year or move up a year. The scope might change, or the overall cost will change as well. So all of this information is captured in the city's database each year. Grant funding is really, really important to our capital program because the feds and the state pay for the majority of the project costs. So on a federally funded grant, the FAA will pay 91.06% of the overall project cost. The state pays a share of 4.47%, and then our local match is 4.47%. On a state grant project, the state will cover 90%, and the airport share is 10%. So as you can see, we rely heavily on the funding grant funding to proceed on projects. If a project's not selected to be funded for the year, it will generally push to the following year, or we reevaluate it and either change the timing, or sometimes we delete a project. So this is our proposed list of capital projects over the next 5 years. All of the project requests are grant eligible and were submitted to the FAA and the state earlier this year. So this list will correspond to that CIP list in your packets. It's a whole bunch of numbers, very complicated looking stuff. This is a much easier way to view all the projects through a table like this. I do want to mention 3 updates in that list that you have. In addition to the runway rehab project that we're going to start later this summer, the first 2 projects at the top of this table will be awarded shortly. The rehab service road project, AG05, is going to be incorporated into the runway rehab project this summer. So that one is crossed out on your attached document. Separately, a state grant for the airport security fencing improvements will be awarded shortly. So that project is going to start this year as well. I also want to note a canceled project from the list. There was a project for ceiling improvements at the airport ops building. Just got word that that one is officially canceled, so we're not going to proceed, and it's been crossed off the list as well. Towards the bottom of that table, we have 3 projects identified in white. So we budget annual airport pavement preservation program. So each year we budget about $200,000 of aviation funds annually for pavement preservations, basically to improve the life of the pavements that wouldn't necessarily fall under a grant. So a lot of this money will cover like crack sealing, repainting, seal coating projects. The next 2 projects are more contingencies. In case we happen to get an unforeseen grant awarded by the state or the FAA, and we never want to decline money, so we always kind of keep those as a contingency. And as far as the rest of the projects in this table, I'm going to go through those in the next few slides. So I color the projects by year, and I'm a visual person, so I use the aerial photo for each of the years to kind of identify where that project is going to be taking place on the airport. So this first slide, project number 1, is the Kilo Ramp Rehab. It's located on the north end of the airport, kind of where the box hangars are situated right now. So that project is approximately 38,000 square yards of apron. And the Alpha 10 connector requires rehab to extend the useful life of the pavement. So that is a project cost of $3.1 million. In fiscal year 22-23, we have 3 projects. The first project is, it's a new project in the list this year. It's rehabbing Airport Drive from the south to the north ends. This is the main drive that provides public access to aviation businesses on the west side of the airport. So the cost of this rehab is about $846,000 and requested as a state grant project. The second project shown in yellow is the runway reconstruction of taxiway Alpha and the connectors. So it's pretty much on this end, and then a portion down here on the south end. The scope includes pavement rehab, geometry changes to adjust the angle of the connector taxiways so an aircraft can exit the runway at a higher speed to improve efficiency. The cost of this project is $5.3 million. And the third project, shown in red, is an environmental assessment. There's a 4-acre land parcel located to the north of the Greenway hangars. So the environmental assessment is eligible for grant funding, and the cost is $200,000. It's about a 1.5 long study potentially. And that parcel, if purchased, would provide for additional development area on the west side and allow for a new entry for tenants needing to access the north half of the airport off Greenway Hayden.
Commissioner Murnosky, just a
Yes.
quick question. These projects, like the one for the taxi lanes that they had to adjust them geometry for better egress, how do they come about? Is there somebody going around looking at these things, or is input from operations, from FAA, from pilots?
It could be a variety of sources, Commissioner Bernosky. A lot of these projects do come out of the airport master plan. So they're looking at the 20-year period and they're identifying several improvements that can take place, including geometry improvements to add some taxiway connectors. Sometimes the input comes from our engineers, or it could be from air traffic control and pilots input as well. But I believe for a lot of these projects, they're going to come from the master plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so for fiscal year 23-24, again, this year also has 3 projects. 2 of them are planning related, so they're not really going to be shown on the map, but I'll go over each of those. The first project is the airport master plan update, and that's a cost of $400,000 approximately. By 2024, the current master plan will be nearly 10 years old. So the airport master plan will reassess the airport's facilities as well as the demand forecasts to update that 20-year blueprint for the airport. And they'll recommend new projects that we should be undertaking over that planning period. The second project, number 2, is reconstruction of the Greenway taxi lane and the Alpha bypass, shown here in the middle of right there, number 2. This taxi lane is used by tenants of the Greenway hangars and shades, as well as the air park tenants behind that gate 1. So this portion of pavement sees a lot of traffic. Reconfiguring and reconstructing the taxi lane, as well as the vehicle service road that is right next to it, will extend the useful life of the pavement and enhance the overall safety. So that is a new project that's been added this year. The third project in this year is an airport drainage master plan, and that's at a cost of $400,000. This project will be an update to the existing drainage master plan from 2007. So the results of an updated study could result in new projects to improve airfield drainage, and certainly would be used for future design projects. For fiscal year 24-25, we have two projects. The first one is the design and reconstruction of 3 new taxiway Bravo exits. So these are shown in yellow, kind of on both ends and in the middle as well. This project would also include shoulders, lighting, new signage, and the cost is approximately 2.1 million. These new angled high-speed exits will improve traffic flow and increase airfield capacity. And then we also have, the next project is a land acquisition of the 4 acres. So this is the one that would undergo the environmental assessment, and the cost, we don't know what the cost is going to be. It's a placeholder for now. And then for the final year, we have requested 1 new project, and that's to reconfigure the aircraft run-up holding apron on the north end of the field, and the cost is 1.2 million. This project will enhance airfield safety, as this area is quite busy with traffic. We have a lot of aircraft that are sitting on that area, especially flight school traffic waiting to take off. So looking to kind of improve that area and perhaps increase the capacity. So that list pretty much covers our 5-year list of capital projects for the airport. As part of your packet, you do have the details of the proposed 5-year plan and the project costs over the 5-year period. And it's broken down by the year and funding sources. That report comes directly from the city's budget database. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about a particular project or how we put together the list. And then following Q&A, we'll do a vote for the advisory commission, taking action to approve the ASIP. Thank you very much. Are there any
Okay, Carmen.
questions?
Carmen, thanks. It's Sean Berry. First comment, the angled egress runways is a great idea. We've been talking about that for a long time. And it'll really pick up the speed of I think, the flow in that airport. So that's a wonderful idea. I do have one question on the $200,000 study, the environmental study for that 4 acres. I do these every day. I've never heard of that much money being spent for an environmental study. Has that already been bid out and approved, or is that just in your budget for someday to do?
Chair Barry, that is a project. It's more of a requested project. So no, has not been bid out or anything like that. We're still a little ways away from getting to that point. We put in when we come up with the list and the estimated costs, 200,000 is a placeholder based on similar type projects. So we try to do a little more than what we think it might be, just in case, but it is an approximate cost.
No, I know. Obviously, the city does things a little bit different than we do in this private sector, but that's an awful lot of money for that study. So we can debate that down the road.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I know what you're saying, Mr. Chair, with regards to an environmental study, like you do phase 1. This is different. This is required by NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Association, where we have to do more of an environmental study from regards to NEPA requirements for federal land. Because what the purpose of the environmental study is a whole lot different than just checking the behind the scenes of the land and if there's any dirt. There's a lot of other issues that we have to do in order to incorporate into airport property. So I know what you're saying. Your environmental assessment you're talking about is actually incorporated into this overall giant environmental assessment that we have to do with regards to NEPA regulations and public outreach and all of that. But I understand what you're trying to say. It does get a little confusing.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never been through one of those before. We just did a FEMA study on a deal we're working on. It cost a fortune once FEMA got involved. So I understand how the government can add cost to things. So
you understand completely then. Thank you.
Any discussion?
This is Vice Chair McDermott. Carmen, I got a couple questions on the project numbers. What are those unique to something or?
Yes, Vice Chair McDermott. Those project numbers come from the city's database. So that's part of like when we're entering new projects, a lot of these are called temps. That means It's not in the current planning year or the next one. It's kind of in the future. So it's just kind of a random numbering system that the database puts out.
Okay. I was just a little puzzled by that. I haven't seen those. Obviously, I haven't seen those before. Do you break out, and I didn't look at the ASIP in real detail, but do you break out the design one year and then the construction the following year, or are you envisioning design and construction happening all in the same year?
Vice Chair McDermott, it depends. For some of the larger projects, what we'll do is break up the design and construction. So at least the airport is fronting the costs for the design, knowing that we'll get reimbursed and possibly the following fiscal year.
Okay.
So for a lot of the projects, if you look, the way it's structured, like our aviation funds might be fronted up the prior year.
Okay.
On several of the other projects, especially like the planning projects, we're assuming it's all going to be within 1 year.
Right. Okay. They weren't interested in including the holding bay in with the reconstruction of Alpha, just to complete that project, or they wanted to separate it out because of the cost, I suspect?
My guess it separate probably because of the cost to break it up a little bit.
Right.
And maybe the timing on some of the projects. Sometimes it's the pavement that might be deficient and they need to address it a little sooner. But the hold-up apron in that last fiscal year, that's a brand new project that's been added.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
This is Pete Meyer. This is just a general question. Earlier in the meeting, Gary's comment was that things are going like gangbusters. And with that said, the capital improvements here we're talking about, is that at the same pace we're getting activity now? Is that at a desired pace or at a normal pace? You know what I'm saying, Gary?
I'm not really sure, Commissioner Meyer. Could you kind of rephrase that question?
Well, I guess, you're talking about capital improvements and you're obviously talking about them in light of activity that's going on at the airport currently. And I guess your comment early that things, and I looked at the numbers here in the recent studies, it looks like, we're just going like gangbusters, to use your term. Are these capital improvements designed that will continue to go like gangbusters, or are they designed on a normal activity level?
I believe I understand your question, Commissioner Meyer. Yes, these are based, most of the projects that you see here are based on our master plan that we completed in 2015. And if you dive into the master plan, there's an element in there in the very beginning, other than inventory, that's called forecast demand.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Yes, those forecasted demand was based on numbers back then. They were also the only item in the plan itself that the FAA authorizes. So they blessed those numbers. And with those numbers, then we go create this program of the master plan. So sure, I think you and I are on the same page. If I can move up a lot of these projects, I would certainly do so. This funding's just flat out not available, because we are definitely way above what we expected in our forecasts, and which is very unusual because every other airport, being involved with many conversations with the FAA and in groups, all the FAA folks from DC are telling airports like Sky Harbor or a Tucson or San Luis Obispo, your forecasts that you did in February of 2020 mean nothing now.
Exactly. That's exactly where I'm going.
So they're all telling these airports, you're basing your contracts and your construction and your terminals and all that based on the forecasting models that you completed and we approved, as the FAA would say, prior to March of 2020. Now you're going to have to redo it because it's a new world. And that's the back and forth discussions that we're hearing in the industry. The vice chair can certainly speak on that because he's part of the industry. With us, we're very unique because we're even busier now, that when we do our master plan in the future, we're going to see it significantly higher. I'm not sure if the FAA is prepared to or expecting to see that, particularly at this type of airport.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Vice Chair McDermott. Yeah, Gary's absolutely right. I mean, with the airports that I work at, most of them have seen a considerable drop in their operations, but Scottsdale is very unique in that it's just the opposite. So it's a kind of the
We're an anomaly. is
Good.
really what we're saying here.
Right, it's a good problem.
Yeah, is there gonna be an opportunity for the FAA to divert some funds from major hub airports to municipal airports?
Well, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this runway project that we're getting, I think I've described a few times, is absolutely the case. Because we're going, as I quote unquote gangbusters, because of the political environment of Scottsdale, because of the need. And again, we're a general aviation airport. So because we don't have scheduled service, there's much more limited amount of funding available for us. As you know, in the CARES grant, an airport that was a lot less smaller and a lot less activities, like 70,000 operations, they got $18 million. We got 150,000 or 162,000. So that's the quagmire we're in the middle of. But yes, they are recognizing the need of Scottsdale, and that's why we're getting $12 million this year. And they've already released the funding for us. We're just waiting to finalize our gross maximum price for what the runway is going to cost, and they're going to write us a grant.
Yeah. Cool. Good news.
It is great news.
All righty. So end of discussion. Do I have a motion on the 5-year capital improvement plan?
I move we approve it. Pete Meyer.
Do I have a second?
Vice Chair McDowell, second.
Hey, Carmen, can we have a vote?
Yes, Chair Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Bernowski,
Yes.
and Commissioner Milburn.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It passes 6-0.
Great. Thanks, Carmen. Next item, discussion possible action for airport rules and regulations. There's about 4 or 5 things in here, including takeoff of helicopters, that Gary Mascaro is going to brief us on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As always, as I like to provide some little background, we have guiding documents, primary guiding documents that are directed by our city code that allows us to make changes as we need to. These primary guiding documents are certainly dynamic in nature, and we make changes as necessary. So we like to scrub them every once in a while to make sure that we make some tweaks as we need to. And these particular documents are referencing, and I'm going to go through them just generally. The goal of these changes is to evaluate, to help foster long-term development, health, and enhance safe operating environment in the airport and airport. And we want to provide clarity for our users every day. So I would call these cleanups, as we've done multiple times. And I think Ms. Domingo has it listed there, but the first one, and I won't go through too much detail, is we were updating the definition of being a based aircraft. We want to make sure that it's very clear that when you're operating an aircraft here at the airport, when you're defined as based and when you're defined as transient, for a number of reasons. One is where they can park. 2 is fees that they'll be charged. 3 is locations that they're going to operate out of. So that's the first one. The second item is the aircraft shades and tie downs, which talks a little bit about basically you can't park aircraft that are based here in transient parking. We have very limited parking for small aircraft. We want to keep that area open. It's a very, very important situation for AOPA, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, to make sure that we have space available for transient small operators to come in and out where they don't have to necessarily deal with a fixed based operator or an FBO. Obviously, that saves them time and money. They can park their planes and they can come and walk through the gates and come back in a few days and then return. So it's important to make sure that we have space available. Space is very, very limited on this airport, and we want to make sure that space is dedicated for transient parking. As a matter of fact, AOPA has hit us up and several other airports to make sure that we have those spaces available, and it is listed on the airport facility directory. So if you go on the airport facility directory that the FAA posts for Scottsdale Airport, you'll see an area that talks about that type of parking. Section 2-15 of the airport rules and regs, where we're adding a new section to talk about the use of the building. Our business center is a business center. It's an office complex. It is not a terminal. So we want to make sure that the people utilize that as a business center and an office for the tenants that are operating here and have a lease here. And then the final item is Air Park Rules and Regs, Section 301. We're adding a simple sentence to clarify that hover taxiing of helicopters are prohibited in the air park. And what hover taxiing means is when they taxi or basically hover over the taxi at a few feet above the ground as they go down the taxi lane to put their property that they're going to. It's a pretty simple safety issue. We don't want dirt, dust, debris, rocks being flown around from a helicopter flying really low over a taxi lane. As you know, some of the edges of the taxi lane is just gravel and debris and private property. We don't want rocks to kick up to cause a FOD situation or foreign object debris situation or do any damage to any planes that may be staged ready for takeoff. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would entertain any questions or then I would ask for an action. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the explanation, Gary. Any discussion? If not, can I get a motion?
Vice Chair McDermott, I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Pete Meyer, second.
Thanks, Pete. Let's have a roll call.
Chair Barry,
Yay.
Commissioner Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Bernowski,
Yes.
and Commissioner Milburn.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 6-0.
Thanks very much. Next, Carmen's going to update us on the business permit situation and status.
Thank you, Chair Barry and Commissioners. The latest and greatest airport and airpark tenant list is included for your review. We didn't have any new ABPs this month, so I really don't have any changes from the prior month. It's really just a clean list. Any questions?
Not for me. Anybody else?
None here.
Okay, let's move on to the financial report for December 2020 from Carmen.
Great. Thank you again, Chair Barry and Commissioners. Actually, can I confirm, are we on the right number? Just wanted to. I need my agenda in front of me. Hang on just a sec. Are we, I was showing it was agenda item 13. Are we, oh, never
I have
mind.
the financial report as 6.
You got it.
Yeah, the number
Yep.
6, that's correct.
Perfect. Typo on my list that I created. So Chair Barry and Commissioners, in your packet is the monthly financial report for December. In the upper right-hand corner, we have our revenue and expenses for year to date as shown. The approved budget for the revenues was 2.4 million and our actuals came in at 3 million. So we did a little better for year to date. And then on the expense side, our budget was 1.2 million and our actuals were right on target with 1.2. For the December monthly comparison to last year, we had 745,000 in revenues this December compared to last year's revenues of 495. So there was a bit of a variance. The variance is due to a couple of items. Primarily, one of the FBO payments for their collection of landing fees and fuel flowage and parking was processed on December 1st instead of processed in November. So that's going to be inflated by about that 72,000. When you factor that out, we're still well ahead of last year's revenues for the FBO services. Another factor was the customs fees. The rental car revenues are a lot higher this year over last year. On the expenses, we are higher this year at 321,000 compared to 193 in 2019. The variance for that would be the quarterly U.S. Customs labor bill that was processed in December. It's a quarterly, and a lot of times we're off by a month or two. So that would be the variance for this year, along with some larger one-time expenses, such as the work on the ABC stairs and some pavement work. On the left side of the financial report, I have the aviation fund cash balance showing 6 million as of December 31st. And then in the middle of the report, we have our accounts receivable aging. So those are the balances as of January the 4th. And just as a reminder, the negative numbers in the future timeframes, it's a good thing. It just means a customer has paid in advance for several months. The bottom half of the report is our fuel flowage stats. So to give you a summary of the December fuel revenues. They are up quite a bit over last year. Shows that the activity is continuing to pick up over last year. For the December comparison, the jet fuel gallons sold by the 3 FBOs now are up 33.5%. Avgas is 15.9%, and Air Park fuel is up 14.3% over last December. So overall for the month, December gallons is up 28.1%. And that difference over last year is about 277,000 gallons. For the fiscal year to date, the jet fuel sales are up 27.2%. Avgas is up 5.5%, and Air Park fuel is down just slightly at 0.06%. So the actual pumped gallons this year to date are at 5.5 million, which is a 17% increase over last year. And that's about 805,000 gallons. So doing really well. And actually, I wanted to make a correction. So we have 2 FBOs that reported fuel for December. Jet Aviation opened up in January, so their numbers will start showing starting in January. So that pretty much wraps up the financial report. Are there any questions?
Not for me. Any questions, anybody? Nope. Thanks, Carmen. Okay,
Thank you.
Chris, you are up with a monthly construction report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This is probably my most boring construction report that I've ever done. So not much going on. We're just starting the phase of the second phase of the box hangar project. As you can see in pictures coming up on your screen. One thing I did want to note on the runway construction project, the FAA has given us official approval to move from 90% plans to 100% plans. So that's good news, staying on track as far as meeting all of our deadlines for that project. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Just a comment, you're going to be very busy this summer, Chris.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Chris, you're up again with the monthly operations report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The typical report here, which showing the based aircraft compared to last year by type. And then as we move down to the operations numbers, you can see compared to last year, we did have a dip in the total operations of negative 9.5% compared to last year, January. Also, excuse me, the IFR numbers were down just a little bit. My guess is the dip in those numbers is because we had a few rain days. You get that and the flight schools stand down and you lose quite a few operations in just those few days.
So the snow didn't bother you? The snow didn't bother you?
The snow.
Oh, the snow.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
no
we
Barrett
had to-
Jackson, no Phoenix Open. I mean, it was
Exactly.
kind of slow, but
Yeah.
I had dinner at Vonti last week, and the tarmac must have had 100 transient jets on it. It was packed. So February
Yes.
looks to be starting off pretty busy.
Yes, yeah, only being down 1.3% on the IFR numbers without a Barrett Jackson, which is our biggest jet weekend, is actually not a bad thing. So
Yeah, for sure.
okay, moving down to the alerts, just 3 alerts during the month. Everything turned out a-okay. 7 or 8 incidents there. Enforcement actions, we did have an abandoned vehicle in the parking lot. It was towed away. And then as far as the U.S. Customs numbers, very busy month, 171 operations and revenue of $95,225 for the month. And then the U.S. visit flights, 32 of them. And you can see the number and nationalities of the folks who were on those 32 flights. And then next is the revenues compared. So this is fiscal year to date. So you can see that we are still well above last year's revenue and the number of uses. And so customs has come back strong. And then as far as the PPRs for the operations over 75,000 pounds, we had 5 for the year, starting a fresh year with 5. And then attached is the chart that shows the operations for about the last 16 months. And with that, I'll take any questions.
And thanks, Chris. Anybody have any questions?
Commissioner Milburn here. I'd make a comment, not specific to Scottsdale, but just today, Aviation International News had an article that had been reported by Argus, and they indicated that for the first 6 months of 21, they expect a 25.4% increase in activity over year last year. And even though they'll still be down approximately 13% below 19 levels, and January and February, they anticipate the numbers would still be down 10% and 15% below 19 levels. But the good news was that by June, they anticipate only being down 6.5% from 2019 levels. So that indicates that activity is picking up all across the country. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks. Any other comments?
Yeah, just to kind of add to that, maybe ask a question of Gary and the team. This is Commissioner Little. In a post-COVID environment with business aviation, there's certainly a lot of talk in the industry about how it may actually come back stronger than it was pre-COVID because of the number of people that are potentially flying private. So my question to the team at the airport is, are there any plans to do updated studies or to look into how, forecasting, additional operations at the airport may dovetail into different improvements or the different ways in which we look at improvements for the airport, based on the potential uptick in activity?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Little, there's been some internal in my brain discussion about that very question about possibly, and don't hold me accountable to this, moving the master plan up after quote unquote pandemic subsides to account for the new operations that are occurring. We do have accurate information to state that there is a significant more charter activity, and there was a significant amount of aircraft sales last year alone for corporate. So yes, 100% agree with you on that. We're trying to let the dust settle a little bit more and see what happens. And then we may move our study up a little bit and rearrange some projects based on the results of the new study.
Better to be ahead of the curve than behind it.
Exactly.
Good. Thanks for that comment, Gary. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Let's move on to public outreach programs by Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Chair Barry and Commissioners. I'd like to provide just a monthly update of the marketing, community planning, and outreach programs at the airport. As you know, I'm just going to focus on some of the highlighted sections below. And on voluntary curfew outreach, when we can connect a complaint to an operation, we'll send out the voluntary curfew letters. And for the month of January, we had 7 voluntary curfew letters sent out. We also continue to monitor property development through the planning department, and there were 4 projects listed within the airport influence area for January. On the media, social media, and listserv front, we continue to send out listservs on the runway rehab project, announcing the official start date, and we included a reminder for tenants. That's kind of our main message at this point, is for them to find temporary accommodations. We heard from several tenants, so it's nice to hear that the message got out there and they're starting to actively search for their temporary displacement during that project. With jet aviation coming on board and opening for business, we did an update of our webpage, also a lot of our brochures. So we have a new general brochure available now, and the pilot guide, it's also posted on the website. Other than that, just kind of starting to work ahead to prepare for some other materials for the outreach for the upcoming runway rehab project. That wraps up my presentation, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Now we have the administrative report from our esteemed aviation director, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go very quickly through this because there's really not too much to update. First item is Airport Advisory Commission items that go to council. We had 3 last month, or the second, and they were all approved on consent. So we appreciate your support. We have the new one going on March 2nd, as well as a new commissioner will be appointed on March 2nd as well. On the next sheet is aviation related items to Planning Commission, Design Review Board, or City Council. No real updates on that. I think Gray Star is starting to move forward a little bit, if I recall, but nothing of new updates with regards to that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
If there are no questions, let's move to the possible action to modify the commission meeting schedule by Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As always, we provide you an action item if you want to make any adjustments to your schedule. Your schedule will be scrolled down. You'll see the next item of your next meetings. We have no requests for any changes. I do want to mention to this commission that we may, and the big word is may, request a special meeting of the commission to approve separately the contract for the runway grant award. Because as soon as we can get the 100% GMP, come to an agreement, we want to get it to you guys and get it on the council as soon as possible, so then we can go ahead and get that grant issued by the federal government. But I have no information as of yet.
No, that's very important. Well, I'm sure we'll all be available for that if you need us.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chair. Other than that, any questions or requested changes?
Nothing from anybody? Fellow commissioners, do we have any possible future actions we need to talk about?
Not here.
No, sir.
All righty, then we are done. One question for Gary. Do we have any idea when we're going to be able to meet in person again with the city?
Mr. Chair, I have no idea. We're kind of handcuffed with all of the boards and commissions. As soon as they can release to allow at least the commissioners together, we will be happy to do what we did that 1 month.
Yeah, that worked great, I thought. So I think we would all like to see each other in some of these meetings. So hopefully that comes soon. Okay, yes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Vice Chair McDermott, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can we get a second?
Dietmeier, second.
Can we have a vote, Carmen?
Chair Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Bernowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Little,
Yes.
and Commissioner Milburn.
Yes.
Thank you very much. 6-0.
The meeting is hereby adjourned, and I'll see you guys next month. Actually, I'll hear you next month. I won't see you.